Customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you are a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Customer Service Revolution, the podcast that helps leaders build companies that employees can't imagine leaving and customers can't live without. I'm your co-host, Denise Thompson, and today's episode is a special one that we're calling Ask John. So over the past few months, we've been asking you, our listeners, for questions. We've received a bunch from leaders, entrepreneurs, frontline service professionals, everyone wrestling with the same big challenges. How do we scale? How do we create a culture employees love? How to make price irrelevant? So today, we're handing the mic over to you. We're going to be reading your questions straight from your emails, LinkedIn comments, and your TDG click responses. So we're getting real, unfiltered answers from John DiJulius, the founder of the DiJulius Group and the man behind the Customer Service Revolution. How are you, John?
Great. 2 days away from my shoulder surgery. So I'm Steve Austin. Do you remember Steve Austin?
I do. The Bionic Man. Does that
Lee
show our age?
Majors. I was in his fan club.
You were really?
Yeah. I used to get things from him. Like I had a photo, like a 8x10 glossy photo of Lee Majors, and I liked him on Big Valley before he made it big on the $1 Million Man, $6 million Man.
$6 million Man.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna look like this. I'm really freaking out because I get one more day.
You want to do that again? Do you want to show everybody again why you have that? You want to flex?
I got one more day of lifting, and then I can't lift for 5 months, and I'm like just freaking out because I don't like cardio. So I feel like I'm never gonna work out again. I feel like I'm just gonna get out of habit and never resume. So I got to get into cardio.
5 months is a long time.
I know, and I'll shrink and I'll lose.
Did it take that long for your last one?
Yeah, that's what I'm going off of. I can't remember if it's 4 or 5 months before you can like lift weights or whatever. You could do something with like a 1 or a 2 pound like rehab, but oh well.
Every bit helps.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. All right.
So for our listeners, whether you're driving to work, leading a team,
and let's have them send me gifts.
Where should they send those, John?
No, I'm good.
You're good. You'll be great. You'll be bionic.
I've been through this before. I won't be able to go through metal detectors at the airports.
Can you now? This is different?
I've had it go off because it's a metal shoulder. Now I'll have 2. When they wand me, it goes off. So I don't know. Yeah.
You'll be flagged.
Did you see there was a LA Karen? Like the Phillies Karen?
I didn't see that. What happened?
A woman at a Dodgers game. Now I can't remember if it was Dodgers or I know they were playing the Brewers. Might have been a Milwaukee Karen. We need to look it up. And she got into an argument with the other team's fan, and he was a foreigner. And so she said, I'm going to call ICE on you. And supposedly she's a lawyer. Supposedly she's gotten fired. Who knows? I don't know if any of this is true, but.
How passionate are you about baseball? Do you get in fights with the fans?
No. It was only when my kids compete and you're sitting next to someone who's disparaging your kid. That's hard for any parent to go through.
Well, and you still have, because Bo's still competing.
Bo
wrestling,
is wrestling at John Carroll this year. Saturday's his first match.
I was just going to say, did their season start? Saturday's it. Okay. Well, good luck, Bo. Now you're going to have plenty of time to be on the sidelines and rooting with one arm.
Yeah. All right. What do we got, Denise?
All right. Let's get into it, John. Here we go. Our first question. I have a small business that I built and grew by really caring about our customers. As we scale and bring more people into the business, I want my employees to care as much as I do about the customer experience. How do I make that happen? And sorry, this is from Ben in Madison,
Madison,
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin? Because we have a Madison, Ohio.
We do have a Madison here in Ohio.
My first knee-jerk reaction is employees will never care as much as the entrepreneur, right? To a certain degree. But then I think about we have some really good a lot of good employees that care, um, in our businesses. I don't know if they lose sleep at night as owners do, but I just think it goes back to the why. I think explaining it to so I just spoke to, Carter Mario law firm that we've worked with, for, over 15, 20 years, and they're just, there's a blog coming out that they're a CX unicorn, and it's a law firm, which is so they just do
Mm.
so many amazing things. Trying to think. When we're talking about the day in the life of a client for them, it's almost a year in the life because if you have their injury attorney, so if you have a car accident, the average time it takes from accident to settlement is a year. Some go 3, 5 years, and some maybe 6 months, but they say the average is a year. And so that's different than maybe, a salon client, like, what you're coming in today with could be bad, good, stressful. But when you deal with someone over the course of a year, you're dealing with a different person. When the accident's fresh and you're overwhelmed and you think you're going to be taken advantage of by the insurance companies or whatever, and you may never work again and your life will never be whole, to in 6 months when it's going slow and you're talking to friends who say, oh, I know a lawyer that says you're getting ripped off, they're not doing it, blah, blah, blah. And you're calling up saying, you're not working hard enough for me. But there's just different psychological things that happen over the course of a year. You get scared, you get impatient, and you just want to settle for a number that you never would have early on. So I almost think, I told them when they're building their day in the life that they need to build a day in the year or a day in the life. Each person represents a different timeline. Like Denise is our first day in the life, and she just had an accident yesterday or today, and she's calling. What's she like? What's her role? Now the second client you're going to show is Jimmy, who's, a, a month into it. And then Samantha, who's 5 months into it. And just because they're employees, lawyers take specialists. Most of them have never been in an accident, so they can't relate to what it's like and why, for what appears to be no reason, you're being irrational and short and abrupt and, attacking me, and so it's the why, it's the understanding. So I don't know, that's maybe most recent on my mind, but the employees need to understand the bigger picture of why we want to give a great experience, and why there's something to that because people need an escape or they need to forget or they need to, make something right and all those things. So I think that's one of the things.
Yeah, yeah, and I think day in the life is a great way for them to have that empathy to the customers.
Yeah. Get them all to read the same book. I don't care what book it is. Flavor of the month, program of the year, or management bestseller. We even did it before I started writing books. When were you hired? 1997. Oh, we were all reading Fish that year. The next year is Raving Fans. The next year it was Secret Service. And you need to pick a path that everyone's reading the same book, new employees, and then the language is similar and, something that's timeless.
Yeah, I remember those days.
I know.
I think yeah, book clubs are a good thing.
Video clubs,
Yeah, video clubs, your micro learnings.
micro learnings.
The next one here is from Sarah in White Plains. Sarah says, we know that our customer service could be better, but training is hard because our team is really busy. What's the first step for someone like us that knows we need to improve but feels overwhelmed?
Can we pause? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I couldn't see because I had
I'm
my.
sorry.
Okay, John, this next question comes to us from Sarah in White Plains. And Sarah asks, we know that our customer service could be better, but training is hard because our team is really busy. What's the first step for someone like us that knows we need to improve but feel overwhelmed?
It's such a broad question. Again, it sounds simple, but get everyone pointing in the same direction. Have a book club, have them read a chapter a month. How does it apply? Start a small CX committee that represents from each department, extension of the leadership. You can't use busy as an excuse because, you got to evolve and train them. And just, you just got to keep the client experience. I mean, it's so much. There's just so many directions, right? You want to start with that customer experience action statement and pillars, which we call transforming. What do we call the first commandment? Revolutionizing, transforming your experience. I forget what it's called, but that's
Igniting?
igniting. Igniting what?
You're igniting the revolution? Would it be
Igniting the
that?
revolution. Yeah, because it sounds like warm and fuzzy to so many leaders, but you have to, all world class customer experience companies have that customer experience action statement that is gonna be your North Star, something actionable, something that everyone can do, that you talk about on a daily basis. You celebrate when someone executes it. And the three pillars, that's transformational. That is getting everyone aligned, drawing a line in the sand that you're going to be known for this. The next thing you have to do is create your signature experience, the journey mapping. What do you want to happen at every touch point? What do you want to avoid that your industry and you have probably been guilty of? When someone calls in, when someone walks in, whatever your business model is, what should happen every time? And a lot of times that's operational processes. Your signature experience comes from the experiential that you want to add to those processes every time. And then what are the above and beyond opportunities? And that's why great brands have a signature experience that you recognize. You recognize when their competitors are doing it. But that's what really removes the employee roulette and gets everyone on the same page when you define what your signature experience is at every touch point.
This next one comes from Sammy in Wichita. Well, we have a lot of call centers we deal with out in Wichita. John, how do you balance investing in customer experience with pressure on budgets and margins?
So one of the quotes I've used forever is the leaders that don't invest in customer experience don't understand the return on investment or return on experience. And so whether you're a consultant or the project lead or chief experience officer, you need to find the KPIs, the return on ROX, return on experience, and what that's going to do. So, the one I like to talk about is earned growth. NPS, I think is broken. I think surveys are broken. I think we all have survey fatigue, but when you track earned growth, earned sales growth, and earned sales growth comes from repeat customers and referrals. That's if you take that from 20% to 30%, whatever your benchmark is. The rest is bought sales, advertising. So that's tangible. When you start moving that north, your earned sales growth, and every business can track it as long as you're a business that tracks where your customers come from. If you're religious about, you have a CRM system, and when you enter new clients in, you track where they came from, your Google ads, saw your billboards, or a friend of mine told me I had to use you, right? Now you can track your earned growth, sales growth. So that's the best KPI. But there's others. There's others that you can track, but you have to make it you have to find it what 1% means in top and bottom line, and you can do that. So we've talked about this before. Sales growth isn't an indicator of experience only. There's so many other things that sales growth by itself, but retention, referrals, that's huge. I mean, that's you can track it to a dollar amount, especially if you're talking about if you spend 3% of your revenue on advertising. That's a hard dollar. Now, what if we can get that to 2.5% because our referrals and retention is going up so much, right? I mean, that's just that's tangible numbers that you can demonstrate.
This is good. Earned growth, that's something we said we were going to have a future podcast episode on. So, listeners, you can look forward to that. Also, listeners, if you've ever listened to this podcast and thought, I wish my entire leadership was hearing this, learning this stuff, not just me, then you need to know about this. It's called the Experience Revolution membership. This membership is our leadership platform, basically, and it's designed to help companies operationalize and systemize the ideas that we talk about every week. Things like employee engagement, service recovery, leadership development, customer loyalty. And as a member, you get 4 live virtual workshops per year led by John and our VP of Consulting, Dave Murray. You also get access to all past replays and workbooks. It's real world frameworks that help you build a company where world class is the standard. Designed for busy leaders who want results, not just theory. You can learn more about it in our show notes or join today at thedejuliusgroup.com/membership.
You
All right, John, this next one is from Lee in Tampa. Lee says, our employees are good people. They work long hours, and I can see that sometimes they get burnt out or disengaged. How do you re-energize them around your mission?
So, depending on your business, I think everyone could be guilty of empathy fatigue, and some industries are more so. Empathy fatigue happens, you know, definitely happens in businesses that are dealing with clients that have a lot of stress in their lives. So think oncology, right? Anything medical, insurance claims, injury attorneys, even car repair, right? Those are all grudge buys that no one really wants to be dealing with. Pleasure buys are, going to Starbucks, maybe for some, going to the spa, going, for your, hike or a weekend getaway, at the beach in Tampa. Those are pleasure buys. Now it depends. So if you're a grudge buy and you think about oncology, if I find out or when I find out someone has cancer, knock on wood, that's maybe once a year. Like I get sick to my stomach, I feel so bad, and hopefully I'm there for who's ever telling me that. But if you work in an oncology department, you're finding that out half a dozen times a day, and everyone you're dealing with has cancer. And then there could be relative empathy where yours isn't as bad as the person I'm dealing with. They're at stage 5, they're in hospice and you have stage 1. And is there a stage 1? I assume there's a stage 1. And it doesn't matter, right? The person with stage 1 is, she has cancer. So you have that. And so it's just constantly helping your employees see what their impact can have, being there in the moment, just being a friendly face, being patient, slowing down, not rushing. And again, every business has empathy fatigue, even salons and spas, which are a pleasure, but you get empathy fatigue because you're just dealing with, dozens of people every day, and it just gets old after a while. So you got to constantly be celebrating and reinforcing the impact that your employees are having and that they could be having, from maybe just giving that person a 5-minute escape to changing the course of their day. They were having a crappy day and you put a bounce in their step, and then celebrating those anytime you get those stories back really fuels the employees you're celebrating to continue to do that type of behavior. And Denise, you've done this, you've led it, and you've been a service provider. So if you have any tips that worked for you or didn't work for you, chime in. I think sometimes your perspective is better than mine.
Yeah. I always think recognizing people makes a difference too. People work hard, and letting them know that you see that, acknowledging what they have going on.
Yeah.
Little things. You always had us create caught you doing something right cards. I don't think people mind working hard, working extra, doing more when they know it's appreciated, things like that. Our next one, John, comes.
And wait, I'm sorry, with that, something I'll tell leaders out there, because it was something that I'm guilty of, still guilty of, is I am so appreciative of my family, of all our employees in my head, and sometimes I think that's, I forget that that's not enough, right? That it, man, when I talk about you to other people or whoever, people bring up, and I'm like, oh my God, I won the lottery when she came to work here. Like, I say those things, but I find that I don't say it enough to them. And then when they, say I don't feel appreciated, I'll be like, "What do you mean? Like, do you have any idea of all the things how highly I think of you?" And, having appreciating someone or having gratitude but not expressing it is like wrapping a gift for someone but never giving it to them. And then being disappointed that they weren't grateful for the gift you never gave them. And this is really on me, and I'm so guilty of that, you know?
That you're not the only one. I mean, I think there are a lot of leaders that feel the same
Well,
way.
parents,
Or
spouses,
yeah.
I think it adds in so many. And so my theme to that is think it, say it. If I think something, I gotta tell someone. So if I'm telling someone that, you say, "Oh, I know Sharon that works for you." I go to her, and this is what I said. "Oh my God, Sharon choosing to come work for us 27 years ago was we won the lottery with her, just in every capacity." So after saying that, I thought it, I got to say it to her. And so I try, that's kind of my motto now, is when a positive pops in my mind, even my kids, text it, video, message it, say it to them, whatever, because I have no problem if I think something negative saying it. That is, more natural for me, which I don't know what that says about me.
I wonder if that's just human nature.
Might be. I'll tell you
Oh,
something else that's not what's really funny is my last 5 or 10 presentations I've done, I've worked in my word of the year, which is wait, WAIT. And I don't use it that much, but for some reason I used it in the last 5 or 10 presentations. And when I go back around in every presentation, someone said that was their biggest takeaway. So wait, as you probably
mm,
know, is my word of 2025. I'm really stressing over what my word of 2026 will be because it's time to come up with it. But wait stands for why am I talking? And I thought this was just a me problem, but so many people said that was like their favorite takeaway. And so I guess it's not just a me problem of like, I get so excited that when you start sharing, I interrupt you. I give you the story, answer, case study to what you're starting to talk about, but I hijack the conversation that might have not been the point of why we're having this phone call. And so I have to shut up, wait, and I write it down, and then I write down the next thing I would have interrupted you. I write down the next thing. And then when you're finally done, when you finally emptied your bucket and shared why you're calling us and what you're looking for, I realize those first 4 things are so not, don't need to bring them up. But they would have cannibalized, 80% of our call and gotten you off track, and I wouldn't have been able to help you. So I think it comes from a good place because I get excited. Oh, I have an answer for that. Oh, I can help you with that. Oh, let me tell you that. But my shock is that sometimes I think I'm the only one that suffers from that problem. And I couldn't believe how many people loved the WAIT acronym. All right, I'll stop interrupting you. You can ask me the next question.
oh, okay. Our next question is from Emma in Lawrenceville. Emma asks, how do you train employees to deliver consistent experiences without making them sound scripted?
Yeah, I think, you do have the right words, wrong tone. The Ritz-Carlton and Chick-fil-A will tell you they made a mistake, 25, 30 years ago when they only gave their employees one option instead of no problem, my pleasure. But the 30th time this morning that you had to say my pleasure didn't sound like it was your pleasure, right? And giving them kind of guidelines, and instead of just my pleasure, it could be certainly, I'd be happy to, my pleasure, you're welcome. There's, more than a half a dozen suitable responses like my pleasure that is better than no problem. So I think it's teaching them, some giving them some bandwidth to incorporate in their personality, but teach them the nevers and why they're a never, why it's unprofessional. We just had this come up in a workshop that no one ever realized. So oversharing. So telling someone, the example came up that, you want to get an appointment with a hairdresser that you've never been to, but someone recommended you to her. And so you call up and say, does, Alyssa have any openings next week for a haircut? And the call center person says, she's wide open. Take your pick. Now, Alyssa sounds like has no customers and you don't want to, maybe go with her. When we talked about that, the person in the call center said, I never realized that was oversharing, right? Or saying, hold on, these computers are so slow. So just giving context and demonstrating why this is unprofessional, why this is oversharing helps, and then giving them some guardrails on what's a more professional approach.
Our next question comes from Joshua in Tulsa. And Joshua wants to know, what's the role of middle management in driving a customer and employee experience?
So middle management can be a little vague depending on how big your company is. But if you want to get out of middle management someday, it has to be your obsession. And in middle management, it's hard, right? Because you are in the middle and you can only go so far with what the executive senior leaders will give you. All I know is if you champion it, you got to push. If you truly believe in it, you got to push senior leadership. And it kind of goes back to the earlier question of demonstrating what are the KPIs to a better experience. So if you could demonstrate, I think if we do this and this, train them, create this, do this, it will increase. Right now, our retention rates are at, 50%. Well, what if we can get them to 60%? What's the average? How many customers would stay with us, come in one more time, whatever that is? What's the average customer spend a year? Now you're getting through dollar amounts. So the middle management, sadly, might have to sell, senior leadership on it. But if nothing else, you should just be creating noise. Like, what's going on at that location or in that department? What are they doing? Why are they getting so many 5-star Yelp reviews? Why are they an anomaly in our business? And the common denominator should be you, the leader, that wherever you go, the experience follows. And so with that, also with any leader, my favorite quote for this is to a leader is go show the proper way and when necessary, use words. So model the behavior instead of pointing and say, why haven't you? Why haven't you? Provide that experience to anyone you come in contact with, team members, vendors, and customers and clients. Never disparage a client, even behind, when they leave. And I've seen that too much where managers disparage clients. Well, that just makes employees disparage clients and feel like, they're all, out to get you or take advantage of you. I think when a leader models the behavior, people will follow.
I think that's good advice. Modeling, coaching. Our next one comes from Christian in Mount Vernon. And Christian's question is, if I commit to improving CX, customer experience, how quickly can we realistically expect to see results?
Well, again, it all comes down to what you mean by committing. Too many people think committing is having a phrase. We're customer centric. World-class customer experience, remove personal interpretations. What does that mean? And then you base everything on hiring, training on that. So again, it just has to be in every action you make, every decision you make, truly putting, your business, the customer at the center of the business. I mean, that people say that, but are they really seeing it from the customer's eyes? The whole journey mapping, signature experience is from the customer's vantage point. Well, not what's easiest for us, get their credit card when they call and then get their credit card when they check in and then get their credit card when they check out. Why are we making them, give their account number every time? Because it's easier for us. Well, it's not easier for them. And like truly looking at every decision you make, that what's in the best interest of the customer is so much bigger than what it sounds like. So, so to answer your question, you could see it immediately. That's why we start with igniting what is it, Denise? Our first commandment? God, I'm struggling
Igniting
with
the CX revolution.
Igniting the CX revolution is our first commandment of our 10 commandments. And the only reason why I'm struggling with it is because we renamed it. It used to be called the Customer Experience Action Statement, but there's so much more. You create your Customer Experience Action Statement. You create your day in the life of a customer. You create your 3 pillars on how. and then you create your nevers and always, your customer bill of rights. And those are simple things that are the easiest to roll out and start seeing traction. And that really starts transforming your culture. You can do that on your own. You don't necessarily need a consultant to do that. If you follow the book, come to the academy, the online academy, it spells it out how you can do it yourself. But that is transformational if you're committed to it. If it's not a once a year training deodorant application and it's something you're going to talk about every week and celebrate and coach and hold accountable, you're going to see a difference in the first month. Not necessarily numbers, but a different attitude of your employees. The numbers will take a little longer because if I'm delighted today, doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to spend more, but I'm going to come back sooner and tell people about you. And then once that starts going, that's a machine that is going to outperform any marketing campaign you could ever have.
So, digging into that a little bit further with how soon can you see results? How quickly have you seen consulting clients get results, like just from starting with igniting the revolution, say doing the nevers and always and rolling those out?
Quickly say it again.
Can you see results in your business? Like
So
you see a difference happening?
Tangible numbers? Is that what you're saying?
Well, let's start even without tangible numbers, that you notice something going on.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you can, get people together, roll out that day in the life of a customer video is so powerful. Like that, hands down, every time I show it in a presentation, which is every time, that is the number one thing that people talk about, come up to me and say how moving it is. And so when they do that for their own business, that's the why. When you see what your clients are dealing with personally and professionally, and you want to be more present and you understand that the level of your expertise, the impact it could make on your day with your customer, with your business, or whatever it is that we're doing. So those things are immediate. Now you gotta create it. You gotta create the action statement. You gotta create the day in the life. That's the thing that'll take, a couple months doing it. But once you start rolling that out, and again, you don't show it. We show the day in the life of our customer to like the salons every time we get them together. But every time, and so that might mean they see it 6 times a year, maybe every orientation. It's so funny when you show it to some people, they've been here for 5, 10, 15 years. You're like, oh, they're going to be so bored. They're the ones that are most moved by it. And they've seen it, 24 times. So that, again, that really goes back to why that's commandment number 1, igniting the, what is it? Customer service revolution. Okay, good. I should know that. That really does that. That's drawing a line in the sand, and all of a sudden there's something different. The negative to it is there's some people that don't want to, maybe working there, that you're changing the playbook on them, and now they're expected to do something that they never had to do. They were really smart technicians, and now you're asking them to, also care about the person they're dealing with. And that's not for everyone. So I think it's a good thing in the end, but there will be some pushback. Just, working at Carter Mario last week, law firm, they lost employees because they're like, when they went down this road, because they are lawyers and they're brilliant and they don't want to remember how you take your coffee. They don't want to keep track that you have dogs and what's the dog's name. But people can find a really smart lawyer at a lot of places.
Good point. We have time for one more? All right. This one comes from Nick in Albany.
New York?
Yes, Albany, New York.
Not to be confused with Albania. Where's Albania?
Albania would be along the Adriatic, near
I don't know.
Croatia.
Yeah, I couldn't. If you gave me even a map of the U.S., I don't think I could fill out more than the half.
Really?
Like, I'm so bad. Yeah, I only know because of what's around us. I could probably figure that out. And I think I know some of the coasts, but no way. There's no way I could fill. If you give me the world, less than 10%. I couldn't tell you where anything is.
All the traveling you do? And your geography is...
I'm not flying the plane.
Oh, you're not booking the travel either.
Yeah.
All right. So Nick's question is, if you could give CEOs
Nick from Albany?
if you could give CEOs one piece of advice to future-proof their company's customer experience, what would it be?
Well, I like that question. Um, and it's keep the human element in it, because now everyone is rushing for AI and automation, and I love it, and I'm trying to do it in all my businesses too, but it can't come at the expense or total replacement of the human interaction. And so now when someone gets to a human being on your team, it's more critical than ever that they are empathetic, that they are knowledgeable, that they you know, are in the certainty business, and provide them with what they need and anticipate what they need, and they're present and they understand their expertise and all those things. And so I think doubling down on the experience, I think a lot of people are, what they think their customer experience is just AI right now. And I think bringing in key elements of training of what we call service aptitude skills, AKA people skills, empathy, curiosity, listening, problem solving, enthusiasm, genuine like others, although there's 9, 4 of them can't be taught. You have to have an interview process to make sure the people you're hiring have, for instance, genuinely like others. I don't think there's classes that can teach you how. It could teach you how to appear to like others, but genuinely liking others, if you don't want to, if you don't like people, I don't think, you can move the needle. But if you ask someone in an interview, Denise, do you like people? Of course, she's going to say yes. So there's some ways to find out if that's true in the interview process. 5 of the 9 can be taught. Empathy. A lot of people think when I ask them to guess which ones, they all say empathy can't be taught. I think it totally can. I mean, I had no empathy for anyone. Life experiences taught me empathy. When I was, 25 and younger, I just, if you had a problem, it was you. Quit being a victim. In my head, I didn't understand that, things happen to you. And I heard Scott Galloway say this on a podcast recently, his podcast, Pivot. You have to be a victim at something to appreciate others going through it. He was talking about being a victim of crime, and that he, in his 60 years, has never been a victim of crime. And nor have I, where I've never been assaulted, never been robbed, never been anything. So I have no fear of that. So it blows my mind when, people do, or they feel they need guns, or whatever they do. If first I'm judgmental, and then I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've never had anything bad happen to me like that. I live in a gated community. I don't think I have the same perspective as those people. So what was I answering?
Future-proof your
if you hire people with empathy, curiosity, listening, problem solving, great. You're just ahead. It's frosting on the cake, but you still have to put them through the training and have it constantly being reinforced. I don't think, I think that's the biggest threat to our customer experience, is that the new generation of employees don't come with the inherent people skills that maybe the previous generations had.
And our final question, what's our first commandment?
Igniting this customer experience revolution.
There we go.
Yes.
That's all the time we have today for the Ask John episode, but great conversation. Thank you, John. And thank you, listeners, for your questions. Keep them coming. We'd love to hear what you're facing and how we can help. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a second to subscribe, share it with a colleague, or leave us a review. It helps more people discover the Customer Service Revolution podcast. And if you want to go deeper, bring these conversations into your organization and build a world-class experience for your customers and employees, check out the Experience Revolution membership. Again, go to the DiJuliusGroup.com/membership. And remember, the revolution isn't coming. It's already here. Until next time, keep changing the world by creating a world-class experience. Thanks, John.
Thank you.